Alright, guys, I get asked all the time about the relationship between strength training and motocross. There's a lot of misconception around this particular topic, so I'm really excited to dive in. The answer is yes. In my professional opinion, strength training should be an absolute staple in your training program. This means through the off-season, through the preseason, and especially through the competitive season. Why? Let's get into it. So for me, there are three main reasons why I believe strength training should be a staple of your motocross and supercross training. And they are injury prevention, greater force production, and body movement technique. Let's break each one down individually. So injury prevention can be sort of an umbrella term, so I want to make it just a little more specific for you guys. Injury prevention is the use of external stimuli to strengthen muscles around joints, strengthen tendons, ligaments, and bones, and it gives your body strength in the extreme ranges of motion. So basically put, it strengthens your body's weak points, right? Your bones and ligaments are living tissues that respond to strength training similarly to how your muscles respond. So that means like when you're lifting a heavy load, it's your muscles' job to do the work when moving that load, but it's up to your tendons, ligaments, and bones to transfer that force efficiently without rupturing or breaking. We've all heard the phrase, every force has an equal and opposite reaction. So every time your muscles are performing work, there's an opposing muscle anchoring down to your bones to provide stability. And that constant force of the muscle trying to pull away from the tendons and bones causes them to become stronger and more dense. So that means your bones, tendons, and ligaments are literally getting stronger because of the resistance training you're performing. For tendons specifically, they get stronger by lifting heavy loads slowly. Now, of course, you want to work up to those heavy loads, but it's so important to eventually add in the heavy loads. Enough of this lightweight, high reps only crap. All set and rep schemes have a place in a well-rounded program. Healthy bones, tendons, and ligaments are more likely to handle a bad crash or a bad case compared to those that aren't used to withstanding more than just your body weight. That makes sense, right? Now, is this a miracle cure for not getting injured when you crash? No, it's definitely not. It will, however, give you a much better chance of getting up without a major break or major tendon rupture. All right, let's move on to greater force production. This one, I feel, is pretty self-explanatory. The dirt bike is freaking heavy. The G-forces you experience are really intense. It only makes sense that the ability to produce a high level of force would make it easier to maneuver that dirt bike through all the obstacles you'll encounter. All the instances that tax the body the most become a lot easier when you have a high level of strength. Landing from jumps, charging hard through braking bumps or whoops, squeezing that bike with your legs, just trying to hang on to the dang thing, elbowing off the competition when that whole shot is on the line. I could go on and on, right? If you're strong, your life on the bike, I promise you, will be so much easier. You're also a lot less likely to get injured if you're strong. Now, this isn't only for the reasons I listed before with injury prevention, but for the simple fact that stronger individuals normally can take a tougher beating. I think that makes sense. If you hit neutral over a jump and you get kicked over the bars and you have to land on your feet from 30 feet in the air, what do you think? Think you'll land softer if you're weak or if you're strong? Just in case there's any debate, the answer is strong. Having the strength to resist the ground coming at you fast will give you a much higher chance of walking away from the crash unharmed. If you lack leg strength in this scenario, your legs are just going to buckle and do absolutely nothing to slow your body down before it hits the ground. What if we take this thought process even a step further? What happens if you crash on the track and don't even have the strength to pick up your dirt bike when you're in that awkward angle or on a slight incline? Talk about embarrassing. I've seen it. It's horrible. Don't be that person. Train to be strong so you can rise to whatever challenge you're going to face on that track. All right, now on to my favorite reason, which is body movement technique. I'm almost positive that everyone here has heard the term movement quality. If you haven't, let me catch you up to speed. It's a buzzword that a lot of trainers use to describe something that they don't actually understand. So when I personally talk about body movement technique, I'm talking about foundational body positioning and certain movement patterns that you can learn in the weight room, and they transfer over directly to riding technique. Now, let's think about this. If you can't transfer force efficiently in a weight room where the environment is super slow and really controlled, how could you possibly think you'd be able to do it on the dirt bike when the environment is literally everything but slow and controlled? So what are the main body movements that I'm talking about? Well, I'm talking about push, pull, squat, and hinge. Every movement pattern I just listed is seen on the dirt bike every single time we ride. For example, going through a set of rollers, your upper body is going to be pushing and pulling kind of like a rowboat. Your lower body is hinging back, which when I say hinging back, what I mean is that you're kicking your butt backwards and you're lowering your chest towards the bars. And your legs, meanwhile, are squatting to absorb each roller. Literally, any possible movement you can do on the dirt bike is a combination of these four patterns. So knowing this, how could we think that we shouldn't know how to perform these movements safely and effectively, right? These movements should be so comfortable and strong that they become instincts. Now, when I talk about instincts, why do I say instincts? Why is that important? I believe that we need to take the thinking element out of riding and transition all decision-making to instincts. Instincts are fast. Thinking is slow. If you charge into a set of rollers or supercross whoops and you need to pause, take a good look, run through your head what kind of body position you should have for this particular obstacle, and then make a decision based on that thought process, I promise you, you will be halfway through that obstacle aboard a bucking bronco and you're going to crash. Hard. I have personally seen professional riders improve their riding posture and technique simply by performing compound movements in the gym and learning how to perform them the right way. Alright, so let's recap really quick before we move on. Strength training should absolutely be a staple of your motocross and supercross training. Why? Well, my three main reasons are injury prevention, greater force production, and body movement technique. Don't miss out on this crucial part of your training program. All right, I also want to take a second to address another question I get asked often, and that question is, should I worry about getting too big and bulky? Let me just say this right now. The answer is no. All right? If you're worried about getting so unbelievably jacked that you can't even touch your own back, it's never going to happen unless you dedicate your life to it. It doesn't happen by accident. Bodybuilders get that big over the course of many, many years, and that's because they're in the gym 6 to 7 days of the week, lifting to failure every time, and are doing a ridiculous number of sets and reps. I'm talking like up to 6 sets of 15 to 20 reps. Now, if you do all of that and also dial in your nutrition to put you in a calorie surplus consistently, then sure, you can be worried about gaining a lot of size over the next several years, but that's still over the next several years. The average person can only gain up to 10 pounds of muscle over the course of 1 year, and this becomes even more difficult the more consistently you train. I promise you, it doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen overnight. Now, I know there are a large number of people listening to this podcast that are asking, Jacob, what about arm pump? I know most of you know what arm pump is, but let's go through it just to make sure we're all on the same page. Arm pump is when the working muscles in the forearms fill up with blood, causing them to swell. Around the muscle is something called fascia, which is kind of like a shrink wrap that holds your muscles together in this tight bundle. And when the muscles swell, the fascia starts to squeeze on the muscles, causing a restriction in blood flow, and this kind of leads to that numbness and weakness you feel in your hands. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, bigger forearm muscles would have less room to swell before they start to get restricted by the fascia, the shrink wrap type stuff, making them easier to feel pumped up. However, just because you're strength training doesn't mean your muscles will get bigger. Now hear me out on this, and we'll get back to arm pump in a minute. What you guys need to understand is that to increase strength, you actually don't always need to increase size. This is especially true if you're new to the world of strength training. When it comes to gaining strength, there are really two key points that explain where your strength gains are coming from at the beginning of a new training program. These are intermuscular and intramuscular. I'm going to go into intermuscular first. So intermuscular means between the muscles. The initial gains in strength you will see is your muscles are actually working better together as a system. Your body is getting better and more efficient at performing that given movement. It's kind of like developing a new skill. The other type, intramuscular, means changes happening inside the muscle. These changes are things like your nervous system is getting better at contracting the entire muscle in a more efficient manner, or your muscle is starting to increase in size, allowing for more force to be produced. Now, for the first 6 to 12 weeks of your strength training program, almost all of your strength gains are attributed to nervous system efficiency and intermuscular coordination. Once your body kind of peaks from those adaptations, that's when we start to push for increases in size if we're still looking for more strength. However, for the average rider, just getting those initial adaptations will set you up for success unless you're purposely trying to gain weight. So let's apply those concepts back to arm pump. Unless you're putting your forearms through a bodybuilding style training program, meaning lots of wrist curls to failure and other exercises that are only meant to increase size, you'll get stronger forearms without getting any extra arm pump. Seriously, don't worry about it. This definitely shouldn't scare you away from lifting weights. Just make sure you're training smart and not like a meathead. Now, if you're one of the rare individuals that is already really strong and you're struggling to get stronger without seeing an increase in the size of your forearms, you can buy there are these kind of wrist straps that take your forearms completely out of the equation, reducing the use of your grip. What they do is they distribute the weight around your wrist and forearm so it doesn't actually take any muscular strength to hang on to the weight. So let's recap really quick. Lifting weights will not make your arm pump worse unless you are specifically training your forearms to get bigger. You will not get ridiculously jacked on accident. Please, please, please don't skip the weight room because you're afraid of getting too big or getting worse arm pump. Trust me, I know these concepts can seem really complicated and kind of daunting at first. So if anybody still feels a little confused or would like a different kind of deeper explanation, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to make another podcast or another Instagram post or something that'll help you understand it better. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you did, please take 5 seconds to share this podcast with a friend, a relative, that person in your life who tells you that motocross isn't a real sport, anyone you feel could benefit from this information. Also, feel free to leave a comment or send me a message on Instagram or however you want to get in contact with me to let me know how I can be better, what you guys want to hear about. All right, I'm here to provide value to you guys. That's the only reason that I'm here.